And we're back now with our guests to talk about this oil spill. Well, they may as well call it the soundbite that was heard around the world. Certainly it was heard around this country on Friday at that congressional hearing when, out of the blue, Republican Congressman Joe Barton of Texas said that he wanted to apologize to BP, the oil company, because of the kind of rude treatment it was getting from the government. We just want to play that.
But I apologize. I do not want to live in a country where any time a citizen or a corporation does something that is legitimately wrong is subject to some sort of political pressure that is, again, in my words, amounts to a shakedown.
Now, that's what Joe Barton said. Well, today, the White House Chief of Staff, Rahm Emanuel, said on ABC's broadcast that this was not a slip of the tongue, that it was not a gaffe, that it was a prepared statement, and he said it was a governing philosophy that the Republicans are laying out. And he noted that Rand Paul is running for the Senate down in Kentucky. It said criticism of BP, he called it anti-American at one point. So I guess what I want to ask you, Senator Shelby, as a Republican, was that a governing philosophy that Joe Barton was laying out that represents your party?
I think that was a dumb statement by by Congressman Barton, and he repudiated it later. He only spoke for himself, and then he tried to get away from that after there was pressure put on him. I would invite Congressman Barton, if he hadn't been to the Gulf, and also Congressman Paul or his son, to come down here and see what's happened. We don't owe BP an apology. They owe the people of the Gulf an apology, the American people, and they are solely responsible for this. This was not, this was a man-made incident, a big mistake. They tried to do it on the cheap, I believe, made some shortcuts, and they paid for it, and now we pay for it. The congressman only spoke for himself. That is not mainstream Republican thought.
Congressman Gow, why do you think that the congressman said something like that?
Bob, I don't really know, and it's really out of character of Joe Barton to say that. For the past year and a half since I've been on the Hill, he has approached me on a number of occasions and asked me about New Orleans, about our recovery, and what else we can do to help the people down here. So I know that Joe Barton is a caring person, and it somewhat baffles me with respect to why he apologized to BP. But at the same time, our people are suffering down here. Our people are trying to struggle to survive, not only from Katrina, but now from this oil spill. And we need the help and the assistance of not only from the federal government, but also we need BP to step up to do everything that they can to better clean our coast, to shut this oil gushing, and to look at the long-term economic and psychological redevelopment of this area.
Let me ask Senator Nelson, there are a couple of other developments that just seem to be simmering kind of in the background, and one is this whole question of these oil plumes. BP and the government continues to say there's just one, but we continue to hear research scientists say there may be oil beneath the surface, that we may still be, or the government and BP may still be playing down the significance of that not only there may be more oil under the surface that we've been led to believe, but also that there may be oil seeping out along the bottom of the ocean, not just coming out of the wellhead. What have you been able to find out on those lines?
It's true, and I want to answer that, but I want to say about Barton's comment that it's illustrative that the oil industry has ruled the roost. And in part, they still do. You know, we're trying to lift that artificially low cap of $75 million on economic damages, and we can't get it through the Senate because all state senators keep objecting to our request to get that legislation up. With regard to the plumes, the researchers from a number of universities have taken measurements at 200 meters, 400, and 1,000 meters They bring up the samples, they look clear, but when they put their instruments on it, in fact, there's oil. Now, what is the long-term effect of that, Bob? We simply don't know. But we know where the oil is on the surface, we can see it, and it comes in, etc. But what is that long-term effect with oil sloshing around below the surface? We simply don't know.
What do you think the administration or the government in some way is trying to keep this a secret to make it appear that it's even not as bad as, it could be even worse than what we know?
Not the administration, but every point Barbara and I have seen that BP has drugged their feet. They said it was 1,000 barrels, then 5,000. Now it's upwards of 60,000 barrels a day. BP says there's not the underwater plumes. That is not borne out by scientific research, and we're going to learn more about it.
Senator Boxer, Senator Nelson brought it up just now. Let me ask you, because you're going to bring this legislation up in your committee this week, and that is the idea of lifting this liability cap, which is what, $75 million right now, on future spills. I mean, I think we've seen that BP has now said they're going to put $20 billion in this escrow account. Why do you feel that is necessary? Because I'll give the argument that the other side makes on this. They say if you don't have some kind of a liability cap, then smaller producers won't be able to buy insurance, and they'll be knocked out of the game. So why is it a good idea to lift that cap?
Well, Bob, if you care about jobs, if you care about a way of life, if you care about coastal economies, then it is ridiculous to have the tiniest of caps. And that cap is $75 million. And that's what right now is the current law, to pay back the fishermen, the people who run the hotels, the people who rent all the wonderful recreation, the boats and so on at these beautiful areas. So if we really care about jobs and we really care about this economy, then you got to protect people. You know, at the Exxon Valdez, this is unbelievable. They fought in the courts, Exxon did, and at the end of 20 years, they were still fighting they didn't want to reimburse the fishermen and all the folks there. They finally settled at $15,000 average per claim. So to me, it's a matter of justice. It's a matter of fairness. And Bob, if you don't have a license and you really can't get a license to drive a car because maybe your vision isn't good enough, and you get in that car and you hurt somebody, you're going to have to pay it all. There's no artificial cap. So I think it's crucial to lift the cap, and we'll probably be doing it in about the next 10 days. We will have a bill. I believe it will, in fact, lift the cap, because I don't think that oil companies should be treated any differently than individuals. If you hurt people, you got to step up and pay for the damage that you did.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for a very enlightening discussion this morning. I'll be back with some final thoughts on all of this.